you can get a long way just with using A-frame static elements that are interpreted, and you can build up some pretty great static VR experiences based on that. But for me, I think like the interesting part comes in, where it's where you actually need like a JavaScript developer is when you want some kind of interaction, and especially when you want some kind of state keeping. For instance, I built an example earlier, which was based around the notion of switching between, you could say, like a regular 2D view and then a virtual reality view, and then using a Redux store to keep those two in sync, because they were basically drawing on the same on the same data. There's no time to build a solution of that size in this coding session, but we are going to build like the very beginnings of it, and then you can see if you want to take it further. So we're going to bring Redux into the picture now. It's of course complete overkill for just building a panorama viewer that can switch between the two photos, but it's more for the sake of the example, so you get the idea about how would you go about building a bigger solution in this with lots of different state. So we're gonna add a new file now. First I called it redux.js, but that's a really bad idea. Maybe you can guess why. So now it's called store.js. All right. So we're gonna do a bit of kind of basic state here first. So we're gonna go in and declare an array of images. You can see I have some images up here, and I just want to make sure that our app knows about those images. So I'll just hardcode them in a little array here, and that's kind of some of our basic information that we have. That we have these three named images here, and then I also just want to have some kind of initial state, which is usually a good thing to have in Redux applications. Again, it seemed like not too many people were familiar with Redux, and I'm definitely not an expert in explaining exactly what it is. Other people can probably do that better, but it is a nice way of abstracting away different parts of your specific data from the interactions that happens, and hopefully it will also become a bit more clearer for those that doesn't know it as we code this. But we want to have an initial kind of state, and we're gonna use immutable for that, because it's a nice approach that I would definitely recommend when you use a Redux. So let's we're gonna use an immutable map for that, and then we're gonna declare a map here, and basically our initial state will just be to say, let's take the first image and say this is our initial state, right? We start out with just saying the image we're seeing is the first image in the array. All right, and then we wanna have an action now. So the interaction that we want to have here is that we are going to add basically a spear in here. It could be whatever, but a spear is easy. When you click that, then you're going to switch to the next photo in the list. So we want to have an action for that, and we could call that action next panorama, and it doesn't really do a lot, and that's the beauty and sometimes the confusion of Redux, that these actions often just just return like their constant, like what is it supposed to do. But in more complex situations, they would return more stuff than this. But here we basically just need to say, when you call this, it's this action type called next panorama. So that should be all we need for the action. And then we need to write the reducer. Redux have this concept of reducers. I think the name is also related to that. And a reducer is basically a function, or you can have more of them. In this case, we're just going to have one reducer. It's a function that looks at an action that it gets in and say, okay, so what am I gonna do with this action? What are we actually going to do here? And that's where the state manipulation takes place. And then that state change usually kicks off something else in our app. So let's try and write we're gonna write a click handler here. We're gonna say like just so we have like a default state, that's gonna be our initial state, and then we're gonna get in an action, and we're gonna look at that action, and then we're gonna say if we have next panorama here, then we are going to first of all find the index of our current image here. A bit of JavaScript 101 here. So we're going to get the index of this guy, and I'm sure you guys will tell me if I mistype something. And then we're going to increase it by 1, and then we're just going to very crudely, I'm sure you could do this in a nicer way, but just say, you know, if we get above the number of images in the array, let's cycle back to 0. So we kind of get a nice cycle, and then we get our next image, because now we have the index of it. So we get the next image here, and there's something wrong with indentation. Usually that means I fucked up something, but let's see. There seems to be. If anyone can spot it, then let me know. Maybe it's just because it doesn't like the indentation here. Anyway, we'll see. And then so what you always need to do in a reducer, so as I remember, is to always return the modified state, right? I mean, that's one of the whole points of Redux, and especially with the mutable, that it's a mutable, so it's always a new state instance that you get back, and that's why we're using this map from a mutable, because that allows us to just say, okay, we want to set the image property to the next image here, and really what it does behind the scene is it creates a brand new state for us with that next image in there, and then if we don't find any case, like if it didn't match any of our actions, we're just gonna return state, we didn't want to do anything with that. So that was the store. That's a lot of code that currently doesn't do anything, but we'll need it for the next part here. So we're gonna go into the entry point and just set this up a little bit here. So we're gonna import the click handler from the that we just created in the store. And we are going to import this create store method from Redux, which is the method that kind of creates a Redux store and allows us to work with that. And a simple way to do that is basically just to call it with a single reducer, and then it will just work on that. And then the final thing we need to do in here in the entry point is is to provide the store into our component here, so we have that available. And just in case someone's not familiar with React, this is a common way of kind of passing away around variables in React. So we use these curly brackets here to indicate that it's a dynamic value, or it's a reference to a variable up here, and it'll be made available as a property inside our panorama component. All right. So now we are going to do the actual work on getting the component to use our Redux store, and to actually make it possible to switch between the panoramas. So let's start out by connecting this whole thing. This will be familiar to you if you have used React Redux. Otherwise, I'll try to explain a little bit what's going on. Basically, the way React Redux is that it works is that it has this provider component that you need to wrap everything in, and then, as you'll see shortly, you use this connect method to kind of bind those things together. So that's why we are importing those guys right now, and then we are going to wrap everything in the provider, and we're going to take the store. The provider wants a store here, and that is what we provided from the entry point. So we're going to put it here to the provider, and that's our provider. All right, and now comes probably the most boring and boilerplatey part of this, but so we'll need to declare some functions here for telling React Redux how to map the state to properties, and how to do dispatches. So I'll just try and write that a bit quickly so we can get it over with. It's not the most exciting thing. So basically, this one says when you get the state in, what props do you want to set on this particular component here? So in this case, we want the image property to be set to the image attribute, or the image value in our state. And the other thing here says how do you map? This one is called what kind of actions would you like to do, and how do you want to map them to some methods you can call in here. And what we need here is basically we want this something that we can call from our A-frame component when you click this next thing here. So we'll say we want a method called on next click, and it should use the dispatch method to call this next panorama. And actually we need to import that also. So if you remember, we put in next panorama in here in our store, and we just need to import that from our store so that the code knows what that is. There we go. So these two methods will together tell what state and what actions to map to properties, and it comes together by using the connect method here with these two guys. So we have basically just give them in as arguments, and then we give our own component here. Oh, by the way, we need this to go away. There we go. Because now this is what we're exporting. Sorry? You were making me nervous. Yeah, there we go. Okay. All right, so now everything should be should be wrapped. And I mean, we still haven't changed anything in the actual code here, but maybe it's a good idea to just check if things are okay. So it seems like things are still working here. So let's actually do something with this. So now the thing here is that while we have a lot of kind of nice built-in A-frame entities like this A sky, and there's a cube and a sphere and loads of things, but they haven't all been ported to A-frame React. They haven't all been ported to A-frame components because that doesn't really make a lot of sense, because they're really just shortcuts for an underlying element which is called entity. And maybe some of you are familiar with the entity component pattern. It's very widely used, especially in game development, and it's quite different from the kind of object-oriented inheritance paradigm, where you inherit from stuff, maybe implement interfaces or whatever. The entity component pattern is about saying, well, to start out with, an entity is just, it's just an empty entity. You can do anything, and then we start adding components to it. There we go again. And that's how A-frame works underneath these components, and that's also the main kind of React component that A-frame React makes available. Is the entity component, and then we it's gonna get confusing now, right? Because it's called React components and it's called components in A-frame, but we'll have to live with that. We're gonna add some different attributes or components to that. So what we want to do is we want to make this A sky, rather than just having a hard-coded image here, we wanted to read that from our state. So we're gonna get rid of this one, and then we're gonna write an entity here. In fact, let's just remember to import that also. That's a component in A-frame React. Let's see. Yeah, that looks good, I think. Let's close this up. Okay, so we want to have a few things here in the entity, and unfortunately we have to kind of redo a bit of the stuff that A-frame otherwise do behind the scenes. But then you also get to see a bit about what it actually is that it does and how you can use that for something more flexible. So we basically start out by saying, what is the geometry of this entity? So we say, okay, so well, basically it's a sphere. That's a primitive. It could also be a cube or a cylinder or those kind of basic 3D shapes. And then we also say, and the radius of that is 5,000. And a good thing to know about A-frame is that the unit is in meters. So when you say something has a radius of 5,000, that's actually quite a big radius. But that's also good because we want to build something that looks like it's all around us, right? But if you take something that is immediately next to the camera and you make it 5,000 high, then it's going to be 5 kilometers high. That's a big. That's simply to make it easier to work with, because when you are in virtual reality, you relate to things directly one-to-one related to your own height and so on. So the easiest thing is to have one unit equal one meter. We also wanna give it a scale so it's positioned correctly. I mean, this basically just means that it's flipped inside out. So rather than putting the texture on the outside, we put the texture on the inside, because the cube is the sphere is all around us, and we want to look at the texture on the inside, not on the outside. And then we're going to tell it what kind of material to apply, and this is where it should be a bit familiar to people who knows React. So we're gonna go in here, and now we're basically in React code out of the markup, and then we need to construct a URL. So it's gonna be a little bit ugly. Could probably split it up a bit more, but let's just do it like this, and let's try and actually get this one to. Let's close this one up. Okay, there we go. So we want to put something inside that URL, something in images here, and so here we are basically using string interpolation to get this out here. So now we are basically saying get the source from the image property applied via Redux down here. So it should be interesting now to see if I still need this. I think I'm gonna put it up here to see if this works. Basically, this should all still give us the same thing as we had before the break. Yeah, and it does. But now we're actually reading the image dynamically from Redux. The last piece of the puzzle here in this basic example is to add some kind of way to actually switch between these panoramas. And now we have laid all the groundwork for that, so that shouldn't be too hard to do. So we're going to add another entity, and we're going to just close that off. And then we're going to again just say, okay, so geometry, we have a it's gonna be a spear again, because now we're gonna make like a small spear. Let's give it a radius of 1.75, and then we're gonna say, what does it look like? Well, I think for this case we're gonna use a color. I don't have a texture ready for that, so let's make it red, but let's not make it all red, because then it works a bit better. We can put this roughness on it also, if that's spelled correctly. Yeah, I think so. That should give it like a bit of texture, because otherwise it can look very flat. Sorry?
Isn't that 1.3?
Yeah. Right, thanks. Okay. And then we're going to position it. So by default, if you don't apply a position, it's just going to be in 0, 0, 0, which is where we have the spear, which is where we have our camera looking around. So we want this to actually be in front of the camera, or at least a bit away from the camera. So we're going to put it at 0.5, -5. So let's just see now if we get something here. Okay, so it's up here, and if you follow along on your phones, you should also be able to now see that you have a red sphere that you can look at here. Yeah, so right now it doesn't do anything when we click, but it will very shortly. The way to click it is that some of these have a button. Many of them are a bit broken, so the button might not work. What you can do is, if you don't use the cardboard, you can just tap the screen wherever, and that because that's also what the cardboard does. You can see here it has this thing here. When you click it, it just goes in and it just taps the screen. That's all it does. So it's a very primitive, but it works, provided that it's not too broken. So let's go in and actually make sure that it does something when we click this, and we want to. So the nice thing here about this whole setup now with React and Redux and the connection between all of those is that we can use familiar terminology from React, like on click. Obviously there's no such, this is not a mouse click we're talking about here. We're talking about something much more abstract, where we actually need to detect this one, which is in 0, 0, 0. It has an invisible line drawing out to here, which is further away. All of that is calculated behind the scenes for us, ending up in just giving us a nice on-click event that we can we can subscribe to and set something up to do. And since we set up the dispatcher down here with a nice method for us to call that will dispatch this action, then we can just say that on click we want to call this props on next clicked, and that should basically be enough to do the trick. Let's see. So now I'm gonna. I mean, first of all, I can click here, and I'm clicking now. Nothing happens. Let's see. Now I focus the. And again, if I take the mouse and click here, it's not gonna work, right? Because we're not talking about a mouse click here. We're talking about this looky thing here. But if we take and focus this one up here and click, then hopefully after a while something should work. So I'm not doing any caching here. So there we go. So now we got Wally here, whoever this guy is. Now I think it's a Mars rover or something, but looks a bit like Wally, I think. and there we have the next one. Found this very nice wedding photo. Like I really think the beautiful people in a few. No, I kind of like this one. I think I want to keep this one around. And then as you saw in the code, it's cycling, right? So it can go through all of them, that's the basic of it. That's how you use A-frame, and that's how you wire the whole thing up with React and Redux. And obviously this setup is completely overkill if you just wanted to do a panorama view or where you switch clicking a red ball. But you can probably think of more complex setups for this. Like one thing I just wanted to show you, if it still works. Let's see if I can. Where is it? Like it's. I don't have that. I just need to see if I had it. Sorry, one sec. I'll find it. Let's see if my internet is working. Yeah. So I wrote this blog post a while ago with a more complex example. And I just wanted to show it. I hope it's still running and everything. So, sorry.
Your server is stuck. You have to scale it up.
So this is an example of a bit more complex example where I extract some data from another meetup. Sorry guys, you're not my only meetup. This is from the meetup API, and the basics here is that you can code people kind of into different types, like it's just colors in this, right? But you can think of it like different types. I think it's like the hacker, hipster, hustler categorization, if you heard about that. So I'm gonna click a few people now, and then we're gonna jump into virtual reality mode, as you can call it. And this is again the same setup where it's all backed by a Redux data store. So now we take all the same data, and hopefully you can see that the same people here. This guy is still green, and this guy is still purple, and so on. And we have the cursor here, if I can find it. White is not always the best color, right? And we can change the same. We can do the same thing here, and we can go back and kind of see. Okay, now we have the state here. So that's a bit of a larger example of what you can use this for, going back and forth. And there's plenty of examples out there if you wanna explore a bit more. While you still have the cardboards here. There's, for instance, drawvr.com. They have quite a lot of nice examples, like of different stuff that runs in the browser and works well on the cardboard. And then there's the A-frame site that's a good site to go in. Works really well on the mobile also, and kind of look at the different examples they have in there to kind of get an idea about what it can do. Yeah, there's quite a lot of other examples out there to explore and look at. Yeah, this is actually an example of where we load in a model. At some point, he should actually get a texture, I think. Yeah, there we go. So that's another example of something completely different you can do with this setup.